and say, okay, what's changed, what's happened that's new, what new papers have come out. So it's reasonably up to date. And what's in here that is not in the European Journal paper is some information on grassland. I think grasslands are very difficult to monitor and to get some idea of carbon sequestration, but I've tried to bring something in to this talk. What we want to start with is this definition of sequestration. So we're thinking of soil as a sink, and okay, in terms of the dictionary definition, then any input of soil organic carbon into the soil could be called sequestration. But the focus tends to be climate change and mitigating climate change. And if we want to mitigate climate change, then we need some idea of permanency. In other words, not just a movement between compartments, but of some climate change mitigation and permanency, that the carbon will stay there. So it has to be a net transfer, and that's quite important for some of the processes that we'll look at. The main definition that I want us to get hold of is that transfer of carbon into the soil is finite. Okay, you might change the land management, you might come up with a system like perennial crops or zero-till that will increase the carbon in the soil, but it won't go on increasing forever. And that's quite important when we think about some of the claims that are being made for certain things that can be done, some management changes. This little graph shows it quite nicely, that you might start off with an initial equilibrium which is quite low, an old arable soil, and some of our arable soils are hundreds of years old. Indeed, the Romans were growing crops in Britain 2,000 years ago. So some of our land has been growing crops for probably thousands of years. And you might change the management system and you've got an increase in soil carbon, but that will reach a new equilibrium. It won't go on forever. And of course, the long-term experiments are perfect examples for showing that. And indeed, if you change the management system again, you could find yourself moving back down that curve and losing a lot of that carbon. And so when we look at the land management changes, we need to bear that in mind, that it's finite and it's reversible. The other thing to say is that in the context of